Mr. Bright. Mr. Bright, you have 5 minutes with a possible extension of 3. If you could give us your name for the record and the agenda item when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Jim Bright. I'm a resident of Narooma. I'm here to speak about the proposed new Code of Meeting Practice. Now, this is my little session here. We'll endeavour not to cover most of the ground that's been covered excellently by the previous speakers. And in particular, I acknowledge the exceptional work done by Mr. Cormack, both in respect of his written submissions and his presentation today. It was outstanding. I'll confine my particular comments primarily to 2 issues. One, the validity of the use by OLG of the expression best practice, and 2, the inadequacy of some of the important aspects of the information that is contained in the relevant staff report. Best practice. Even a quick perusal of the staff report and of the staff's responses to the public submissions in Appendix A will reveal the bulk of our council staff's positions on various aspects of their recommendations is based upon the apparently ready acceptance by them that OLG's non-mandatory suggestions actually do represent some type of best practice. The best practice concept has largely been introduced into various parts of the Australian public sector from the private sector over the last 30 years or so. In the public sector environment, the classification of a particular management practice as being best practice would generally result from a process involving an initial survey within a particular area of activity, say the local government area, to identify those organisations that are achieving the best outcomes for the communities that they serve. After identifying the top performers, the next step is to carefully analyse and drill down into the operations of those organisations in order to reach an understanding of the internal practices that produce the desirable outcomes. This information on best practice would then be made available to other relevant organisations for their consideration. My assessment of the available facts and information would suggest to me that OLG has not made the case for its claims that its views on non-mandatory meeting practices justify its adoption, theft in my view, of the term best practice. My observation and analysis over the last few years of OLG's propensity to frequently and conveniently label its particular views as representing best practice is probably nothing other than a way of tidying up those views in order to induce acceptance of them and to discourage challenges to them. There is no evidence that I can find on the OLG website to suggest that any reasonable type of best practice identification process has in fact been undertaken by OLG in recent years. The stakeholder consultation process that it undertook during 2018 in the lead up to the issuing of its new model code last December was not a best practice identification process. I expect that what is claimed by OLG to be best practice is probably little more than the views of some officers in the council governance unit of OLG. Now, the adequacy of the staff report, and I will cover some comments previously made. Upon reading the staff report last Thursday, I was immediately struck by the obvious lack of any advice to councillors on what other councils in New South Wales might have decided to do on the question of the locally very contentious issue of the proposed cessation of the webcast of public forum. Without a great deal of effort, I was quickly able to establish that in the case of the councils that surround us, the Shoalhaven and Queanbeyan-Palorang councils have already adopted their new code, including the continuation of live streaming of their public forums. Tomorrow, the Bega Valley Shire Council will decide its new code, and the recommendation in the relevant report is that it should also continue to live streaming of its public forum. I then looked a little further afield to the Wollongong City Council, the council that was the model that this council used in 2014 when it decided to live stream our meetings and public forum. Sure enough, that council has also approved the continuation of live streaming of its public forum. As you go west, there's more and more of it. Wagga Council and whatever. I am yet to identify a council that was previously live streaming public forum that has now changed its view. It is also worth noting that the majority, possibly all of these councils, will also be conducting their public forums on the same day as their council meetings. Now, if I was a council being confronted with a clearly controversially unpopular proposition that I should approve the cessation of live streaming of public forum and move it to a non-meeting day, I would very much have expected to have been provided with this type of information. The General Manager's failure to have done this is remarkable, and you should be demanding an explanation
Mr. Bright,
and assurances about future
is up.
practices.
Do you have much?
Thank
you. Councillors, are there any questions for Mr. Bright? Could you put your light on?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I'm putting my hand up for an extension of Mr. Bright.
He's finished.
Yes, I've finished. Thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Main.
Oh, thanks, Madam Mayor, through you, and thanks, Mr. Bright, for your presentation this morning. Irony, I don't know if the word irony is appropriate, but without detracting from the important points that you've just made, are you aware that should this council vote to stop live streaming of the public forum, for the Trivial Pursuit buffs out there, you will be the last presenter from our public to have made a live stream presentation of this council?
Very much so. And I was hoping that was going to be the same case with public access, but I was cut short.
It appears there's no further questions. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Bright.